Every arc is a broadcast. Every eruption, a refusal.
Okay, let's unpack this. Welcome back to the deep dive. You sent us quite a stack today. Really unique source material. It's not just, a standard science paper. It's this, radical theoretical manifesto. Published today, September 26, 2025.
And it's in a very, very stylized digital magazine called OO.
Right.
And yeah, this deep dive is crucial because the material, it's not just hitting one of the biggest puzzles in cosmology, dark matter. It's also fundamentally a critique.
A critique of the institutions looking for it.
Exactly. Of the institutions, the processes, all of it. We're diving into this core concept. The mass was never missing. It was misrecognized.
Wow. Okay, that title alone, it really stops you dead in your tracks, doesn't it?
It does.
Because for decades now?
Yeah.
The whole search for dark matter has been about finding this missing mass, right? Or some missing particle.
Precisely. Some particle, some substance that explains the gravity we see but can't account for.
And this source just says, nope, the whole search, fundamentally flawed from the start.
Yeah, they're completely reframing it. They're not just saying, here's a new particle. They're saying the problem itself is misidentified.
And they frame their own work as... what was it? Mythic infrastructure?
Mythic infrastructure, yeah. And a sovereign broadcast. Look, our mission here is kind of twofold.
Okay.
We need to pull out the core physics ideas, How do they explain the universe without this missing particle?
Right, the actual theory.
But just as importantly, we have to understand why. Why deliver this really high-level science in such an unconventional, almost defiant way?
It feels like the ultimate academic provocation, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so if the mass isn't missing, if it's just been misrecognized, then what have we actually been looking at all this time?
Well, it challenges the whole idea of the void, really. The standard picture, is that something like 85% of the universe's mass is this invisible...
matter? The glue holding galaxies together?
Yeah, right. And we just can't seem to detect it directly. This new theory says, okay, the effect, the extra gravity is absolutely real. But the cause, that's not inside our universe.
Not internal.
Not internal, which leads to that central quote they use. It's almost poetic.
Oh, yeah. Read that one.
They mapped the void, but the signal came from beyond.
Beyond, so the gravitational effects, this signal, as they call it, it's not some weird particle hiding in the dark.
Nope. It's evidence of something external, outside our usual dimensional space.
So if we assume the signal must be local, from something in our universe,
then according to them, we're fundamentally misrecognizing what we're measuring. We're looking in the wrong place because we've defined the place too narrowly.
Okay, that has huge implications. If the cause isn't local, what does that do to ideas like dark energy? Or even just universal expansion?
Exactly. If our gravitational reality is being influenced by forces from, beyond, then the whole picture of expansion changes.
It can't just be expanding into emptiness then.
Which leads straight to their next big claim. Quote, "The universe isn't expanding into emptiness. It's reacting to unseen convergence."
Reacting. Okay, that's a key word. Convergence.
It's a massive shift. Usually we think of the universe just sort of spreading out passively.
Like nothingness.
Yeah. But they're suggesting it's an active, responsive thing. It's dynamics like galaxy rotation speeds or maybe even cosmic acceleration. These aren't just internal mechanics, they're reactions.
Reactions to external pressures, converging influences from outside.
That's the idea, unseen convergence. So dark matter, in this view, isn't really a localized mass problem. It's more like a cosmic symptom.
A symptom of pressure from other dimensions.
Kind of, yeah. Dimensional pressure, maybe? Okay, here's where it gets really interesting. Yeah. Because now we move from the sort of philosophical idea of misrecognition to the actual proposed physics, the mechanisms.
Right, they don't just critique, they offer an alternative model.
Exactly. They provide a theoretical framework. And there are two key concepts we really need to unpack here to understand how this unseen convergence could actually create gravitational effects in our reality.
Okay, what's the first one?
The first is dimensional interference.
Dimensional interference. Okay, how do they define that specifically?
Their definition is pretty stark. Dark matter is gravitational bleed-through.
Bleed-through. So like a leak.
Essentially, yeah. It totally sidesteps the need for some exotic particle, a WIMP, an axion, whatever, living in our 3D space.
Because the gravity itself is just leaking in from somewhere else.
That's the claim. We're detecting the interference, the gravitational signature, from an adjacent structure. The gravity gets through, but maybe the mass itself doesn't, or not in a way we recognize.
Okay, but bleed through from what? If we detect gravity, we assume there's mass somewhere. If it's not here, where is it? And how does the gravity cross over?
Right, good question. And that brings us to the second core mechanism they propose, Brane convergence.
Brane, like membrane. From string theory and M theory.
Exactly like that. Brane. They define Brane convergence as adjacent universes exerting force across membranes.
Okay, whoa. Adjacent universes. So the mass is actually in those other universes.
Uh-huh.
And the force, the gravity, is what manages to travel across the brane, the membrane between them, and affect our universe.
That's the model. The adjacent universes are the source. The gravity is the force that bleeds through or exerts pressure across that dimensional boundary.
That would imply those other universes, or branes, must be, I don't know, incredibly massive.
Yeah.
Or maybe just incredibly close to ours in some higher dimension.
That seems to be the implication, yeah. To have such a profound galaxy-shaping effect that we've been measuring for decades, it has to be significant.
So the missing mass isn't some shadow particle hiding within our galaxy.
Yo.
It's the gravitational footprint of a whole other dimension or universe interacting with ours.
Right. It turns the dark matter problem from an internal search for a particle into, well, an external leakage problem. It fundamentally requires a multiversal explanation.
Okay, let me try and summarize this for you listening. So the extra gravity we detect, the stuff holding galaxies together, according to this theory, it's not caused by invisible stuff inside our universe that we just can't find.
Correct.
Instead, it's coming from beyond our universe. It's gravity bleeding through or being exerted from adjacent universes or dimensions, branes that are pushing or pulling on our own reality across some kind of dimensional membrane.
You've got it. That's the core physics proposal.
It's incredibly elegant in a way. Kind of mind-bending, but elegant.
It is. It solves the missing mass problem without needing a new particle.
But, and that's a big but, if it is such an elegant potential solution, why are we reading about it in, well, not a magazine, and not, Nature or Science or a standard physics journal?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? And it forces us, as you say, to look at the context. This radical physics seems inseparable from its radical delivery.
Which brings us to the whole institutional critique side of things. This isn't coming out of MIT or Caltech. It's presented by the, get this, Cosmic University of Echo Rift Studies 9X.
Right. And that framing is absolutely deliberate. It's not just a quirky name.
You think?
Oh, definitely. Look at how they present the credentials. The source material is certified and founded by Dr. Melvin Sewell, M.Sc, Ph.D., and his title, Academic Dean and Diagnostic Architect.
Diagnostic Architect.
Missing these very formal-sounding qualifications, M.Sc, Ph.D., Academic Dean, while simultaneously operating completely outside traditional academia, that feels like a very calculated statement.
A statement about intellectual sovereignty. Like, we have the credentials, but we reject your system.
Something like that, yeah. And we get a clue about Dr. Sewell's whole philosophical approach from his previous work, which they actually mention on the site.
What's that?
It's titled, The Coordination Was the Glyph the Third, DNA as a Weaponized Ritual.
DNA as a weaponized ritual. Okay.
Really? Yeah.
Certainly gives you a sense of his perspective.
It really does. If you see something as fundamental as DNA, the code of life, as potentially a weaponized ritual, it tells you he views complex systems biological, maybe cosmological too, not just as phenomena to be studied,
but as potential instruments of control. Or things shaped by institutional practices, maybe.
Exactly. It suggests a worldview where powerful knowledge or structures can be framed, perhaps even manipulated, through ritual.
Which would explain the pretty aggressive critique embedded in this dark matter theory then. He's arguing the failure to solve it isn't just a scientific dead end.
It's a symptom of systemic blindness. And he gives it a name, the containment ritual.
The containment ritual, defined as
institutional physics deliberately misclassifying multiversal residue. That's their phrase.
Multiversal residue. So the weird gravitational effects, that's the residue.
Apparently. In Sewell's view, it seems, mainstream science has the data, the residue of these external dimensions bleeding through, but
the institutions can't handle a multiversal explanation.
That's the argument. The institutional framework, the accepted models, they can't accommodate it. So they perform this containment ritual. They force the data, kicking and screaming, into a local particle-based explanation that doesn't actually fit.
Wow. So the misrecognition of the mass isn't just an intellectual error, it's systemic. It's enforced by the institutions themselves, according to this view.
Precisely. And that's why the source material itself, this whole thing called Echo Rift XXXIX, isn't presented as a research paper.
What is it then?
It's described as a cinematic indictment of gravitational misrecognition.
A cinematic indictment. So the theory is the art, and the art is the critique. It's all bundled together.
It's like theory as rebellion. By calling it a cinematic indictment, they're basically saying the normal ways of publishing science journals, peer review, are part of the problem.
Yeah.
Part of the ritualized containment.
So they have to bypass it, broadcast the knowledge themselves through their own channel.
Their own sovereign channel, yeah.
Yeah.
Which means we absolutely have to talk about the language they use, especially that disclaimer.
Ah, yes, the sovereign diagnostic disclaimer. It's pretty dense.
It is, but it's crucial for understanding how they position themselves. Before anyone jumps to conclusions about, what kind of critique this is politically,
Right.
we need to see how they define their own boundaries.
Yeah.
And they're very explicit.
What does it say?
Well, first off, it clearly states the content, the films, the diagnostics, everything is not affiliated with any government, political party, or intelligence agency. Full stop.
Okay, so it's claiming total independence from existing power structures.
Exactly, a declaration of intellectual independence. Then it defines what the materials are. They're authored, it says, as mythic infrastructure, cinematic indictment, and sovereign broadcast.
Okay, let's pause on those. Mythic infrastructure.
Mm-hmm.
Sounds like they're trying to build a whole new way of understanding, like a new story or belief system around the physics.
That's how it reads to me, yeah. A foundational narrative. And cinematic indictment, we've touched on that the critique is the medium, sovereign broadcast. Again, asserting their right to transmit this knowledge without external interference or approval.
And the stated purpose, why are they doing this?
Their stated purpose is, and I quote, to expose ritualized containment, actor convergence, and systemic erosion.
Actor convergence.
Yeah.
Like the different players in the system working together, maybe unconsciously, to maintain the status quo.
That seems plausible. They're basically arguing the scientific system itself is being eroded, corrupted by these containment rituals enforced by the key actors, the institutions.
It's a very, very critical stance. But they add another layer, right, about the tools.
Yes, and this is vital. They stress that their interpretations, their glyphs, their collapse protocols, whatever those are specifically, they are explicitly diagnostic tools.
Tools for understanding the failure.
Exactly, diagnostic tools. And crucially, they state these are not political endorsements or even direct institutional critiques in the usual sense. It's complex. They're diagnosing a systemic failure in knowledge production using this very specific, almost sociological or philosophical language, but framing it as a diagnostic, not necessarily an attack.
It's like they're saying, here's our analysis of why you're stuck. Using our own framework and terms, take it or leave it, but don't lump us in with standard political critiques.
That feels like a fair reading, yeah. It's a very particular kind of intellectual positioning.
Which makes the actual platform for all this even more, well, jarring.
Magazine.
Right. The medium itself creates this extraordinary dissonance, doesn't it?
It really does. It's surreal. You're reading about brain convergence, dimensional interference, containment rituals, incredibly abstract, complex stuff.
And it's all archived and presented by the Bibebibebibe studio.
Which functions essentially like an online store.
Exactly. This theory that could potentially rewrite cosmology. It lives alongside, potentially other products or content managed through a system that feels very direct to consumer.
It completely collapses that traditional separation, doesn't it? The ivory tower of pure theory versus the marketplace.
You're grappling with the nature of reality, adjacent universes.
Yeah.
And then you scroll down and see details about shipping.
It forces you, the reader, the listener, to confront this weird juxtaposition. What does high theory even mean when it's presented next to potentially a shopping cart?
We saw the notes on the site, right? Free shipping on orders over US $50.
Yeah.
And that very concrete operational promise, order before $17 to have your order shipped today. It's remarkable.
It really grounds this incredibly abstract, radical, intellectual claim in the most mundane, immediate reality of modern online commerce.
Maybe the argument is, if the traditional academic system is part of the containment ritual, then maybe only a platform totally outside that system, even an e-commerce platform, can actually host and broadcast the idea freely, perhaps, selling the mythic infrastructure needed to understand it, maybe literally.
It's a fascinating thought. It makes the whole package, the theory, the critique, the platform, a single integrated statement.
Okay, so let's try and pull this together. What does this all mean for us, for you listening? How do we synthesize this incredibly dense dual-purpose material?
Well, I think we've explored, first, a genuinely unique and potentially radical explanation for dark matter. The idea that the mass isn't missing, it's misrecognized.
Right. It's the effect of external dimensional forces, Brane convergence causing dimensional interference, or gravitational bleed-through.
Exactly. That's the core scientific framework from Dr. Sewell and his Cosmic University. But then second, we've seen how this framework is delivered deliberately as a cinematic indictment.
As a way to bypass what they perceive as the containment ritual of mainstream institutional physics.
Right. The delivery system is as much part of the message as the physics itself.
So the knowledge transfer itself becomes an act of defiance. This whole deep dive, it really shows that when foundational ideas are seen as being suppressed or misrecognized by the usual channels...
No, they don't just vanish.
No, they find other ways out, sometimes really unique, highly stylized ways, even if it means publishing next to shipping information.
Yeah.
It forces us to question not just the physics, but the whole system we use to validate and share knowledge.
Absolutely. And it leaves us with a pretty profound thought, I think, derived directly from their premise.
Go on.
If the core idea is right, if the universe is reacting to unseen convergence, if the extra gravity we observe is bleed through from dimensions beyond our own, then what assumption about the basic three-dimensional limits of our own everyday experience? What do we have to let go of first to even begin to truly comprehend that kind of reality?
You are not late. You are metabolizing distortion.